Hi, I'm Dave with EV Naturals. Today we're doing our first Q&A video. Recently we went to our social media accounts and on our emails and asked you to ask us any questions you have about CBD. And we received a lot of good questions, and today we're going to be covering some of them, and then we'll also be doing others in the future as well. So without further ado, first question is, CBD extracts are made primarily through two different methods. The most common one is supercritical CO2 extraction, which is solventless, which makes it more desirable because there's not going to be any sort of residual chemicals left from the process. It just uses CO2 and extremely high pressure to extract all the compounds that are found in the plant. And then ethanol is basically an alcohol extraction that preserves more of the terpenes than CO2 extraction does, but there can be, in some cases, residual ethanol left behind. And then from there, they're used to make tinctures, edibles, and everything. They get further refined and processed depending on what they're being used for. So CBD is usually pretty well tolerated by most people with very few side effects. Some ones that do pop up occasionally, in a very small percent of people that have used it, just been typical, like dry mouth, drowsiness, fatigue, and so on. Some of the more common ones are usually more a result of something else that's in there, like it could be a bad reaction to a certain carrier oil that's in the tincture, such as like MCT oil, which is derived from coconuts. So if you have a coconut allergy, that could give you a side effect. Other ones can potentially interact with medications. The big ones to look out for are blood thinners and statins. Not really like aspirin as a blood thinner, but more the prescription-based blood thinners. And when it comes to taking CBD with those, it's always best to talk to your doctor or pharmacist to kind of see whether or not you can stagger it, or maybe just take smaller amounts, or whether a topical would be a better situation for you. So there's no real simple answer on this one. It varies from person to person. Some people will respond very quickly to it. Others, it takes a bit longer. It can take even days or maybe a week or longer. It can also depend on the form of CBD that you're taking, whether it be inhalation, an ingestible like capsules or gummies, or sublingual oil that you put underneath your tongue. Inhalation, so vaping or smoking it, will have the quickest onset of effects, whereas ingestibles will have a much longer, drawn-out one, because it's a bunch of factors like metabolism, how hydrated you are, how much food is in your stomach when you took it, because it has to go through the whole digestive process before it gets active in your system. And then the sublingual oils and tinctures that you put underneath your tongue are kind of right in between. Then some other factors is also dosage. Everybody's going to be a little different. One person might need 5 milligrams once a day, another person might need 50 milligrams 3 times a day. So if you're not getting yourself to that sweet spot that's kind of specific to you, it will take longer for you to really notice the effects. But once you actually kind of dial in your dosage after tinkering around with it a bit, usually it's pretty quick. So when it comes to drug testing, that's another complicated question. It depends on the type of CBD that you're using. If you're using a full spectrum product, it definitely can. It all really depends on how much and how often, because there is trace amounts of THC in full spectrum products. It's a small amount, but if you are doing it every day, that can kind of build up in your system, because a drug test tests for the metabolites, or basically the waste products that your body produces after kind of processing the THC. And those settle in your fat cells, and they can accumulate over time before they're excreted over time. So the more you're taking in, the more it can kind of build up and can definitely potentially cause you to fail a drug test. Other products like broad spectrum, which has been further refined to basically bring the THC levels down to a non-detectable amount, it is extremely unlikely that you would fail a drug test on that. You'd probably go broke taking it before you would fail one. And then CBD isolate products should have absolutely no THC in them. So broad spectrum and isolate products, you should be pretty safe when it comes to drug testing, but it also depends on how much you trust the product. There's a lot of companies out there that might not be the most reputable, and you might not be able to trust that if it says THC free on there, you don't really know if that's a fact. So you definitely want to stick with products that have third-party lab tests readily available for the batch number of your product. Stick to getting it from like reputable CBD stores, whether it be a brick and mortar or online, and don't want to really go for like the gas station CBD. Not that there isn't good CBD at some gas stations, but they're just really not as much focused on getting a quality product to their consumers as they are kind of just making a sale. So those are all things to consider. So CBD tincture is basically just CBD in a solution. CBD is not water soluble, so it's usually in a carrier oil or a base oil. These can range from MCT oil, hemp seed oil, vegetable glycerin, or anything of the sort. And basically it's just CBD dissolved in there, and you typically will put it underneath your tongue for the sublingual absorption, but you can also just add it to like a smoothie, milkshake. Some people mix it with their coffee and stuff like that. So when it comes to traveling, it mostly depends on where you are traveling to. If it's within the US, CBD is federally legal, but laws do vary from state to state, so you kind of have to do some research on the specific laws of the place you are traveling to. It even gets more tricky when it comes to traveling internationally, because CBD is not illegal worldwide. And then also, if you're traveling with CBD hemp flower or something like that, something that looks like marijuana, there are definitely some states that don't allow the hemp flower, and so you really just kind of have to Google it. Munchies, no. If anything, research has shown that CBD actually can reduce appetite, not in like any real significant manner, but it has been observed. So if you're concerned about getting the munchies with your CBD products, you really have nothing to worry about. Now, if the munchies is something that you do want, then you're better off going with some like a Delta 8 product or something like that, which definitely will give you the munchies. When it comes to broad spectrum's effectiveness compared to full spectrum, typically yes, full spectrum will always be better, in my opinion, than broad spectrum, but there are a couple things with that. So it takes into effect what's called the entourage effect, which is not just CBD, but all the other cannabinoids found in the plant kind of working synergistically together to be better than just the CBD by itself, because all the other cannabinoids found in the plant do have varying therapeutic qualities. Full spectrum is going to have the highest amount of those other cannabinoids, even including THC. Broad spectrum, it has been further refined to remove any detectable trace of THC, and an effect of that is that it also does decrease the amount of those other cannabinoids that are typically found in full spectrum. But you also do have to consider the quality of the product. I've seen some really good quality broad spectrums that I would consider better than some kind of low quality full spectrums. So it's one of those things you have to look at the third party lab report or certificate of analysis and just kind of see the amount of varying levels between different cannabinoids before you really make a decision. But in most cases, full spectrum is going to be more effective than broad spectrum. So that wraps up our first Q&A session. If you have any questions that you would like us to address in future Q&A videos, just submit them to our social media profiles or send us an email. You'll find them linked in the description of the video. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to click the subscribe link down the bottom, and you'll get notified of any updates and videos that we do in the future. And thank you for watching.